we have some special guests. Girls, would you like to come in? So who have we got today? So what's your name? Michaela? Jakayla. Wow, that's very pretty. Alira. Giselle. Sophie. Laila. And you guys are out swimming today?
Yeah.
How's the water?
Good.
That's good. So do you guys know much about and what this is? Razorfish? I don't know much about them. But that's what Paris is for. Who is coming out of the water now? Do you guys want to say hello to Paris? Girls, how are we? So we're talking about the razorfish today, Paris. Interesting. Yes.
So this is what they call a razorfish clam. It's also known as your razorfish or a spoot. It's also known as a spoot. Now, you can see the two parts, so the two shells. One, two. Now the razorfish is actually what they call a bivalve. So they're part of the bivalve family.
Do you guys know what a bivalve is?
Nope.
No?
No? So first of all, I'm going to give you the genus and scientific name of the razorfish. So it's the Ensis magnus.
Can anyone say that?
Correct. So Ensis is the genus that it belongs to. So it's part of the genus Ensis. And Magnus is the scientific name given to it. Okay, so we've got the Ensis magnus. Now the Ensis magnus, otherwise known as the razorfish, is quite prominent in South Australia. This one, which is also known as the fan clam, is the most prominent of the species in South Australia. So this is the one that we see in South Australia around Port Lincoln, Coffin Bay, anywhere. Now a bivalve, nobody knows what a bivalve is. Okay, so a bivalve is they are a marine animal, so they're marine. You ever seen a clam? Yeah, seen a clam? So a clam is also a bivalve. Okay? A bivalve means we have two shells connected with a valve in here. So this is connected with a valve. In here is a valve. Now what happens is when these clams or these razorfish are in the water, they shut. So they close up. Now they're known as what is called a filter feeder. Do you know what a filter feeder is?
No.
Do you know how filter feeding is done? No? So these are what they call suspended filter feeders. So suspended filter feeders means they filter feed when the tide comes in. So a lot of, when you see your bivalves on the side of the jetty over here, on the beams, you'll see, have you seen clams and that sort of thing hanging onto there? So they're also what is known as a suspended feeder. So they feed when the tide comes in. Now the feeding is done through a specialised feeder, which is through the top, and that opens and shuts. And what it does, they feed on algae and all sorts of little micro animals. So when they come in with the tide, these guys actually filter them through. So they filter them out of the water. So it's like little bristles. So they filter them out of the water and they feed on those tiny little microalgae or little micro animals that come through. So they filter through. As you can see, the dorsal, what is known as the dorsal of the razorfish, is straight, but the ventral, which is the top, is curved. Now I want everybody to feel the top of that. Quite rough? Yeah. Do you know how they got their name razorfish? No? They are sharp. They're very sharp. They're called a razorfish or razor clam because the top of them, how they are at the top through here, resembles and is nearly exactly the same as a straight razor that you use to shave. So that's why they're called a razorfish, because these here resemble a straight razor. Do you know how they dig in? No? Alright. So what happens, how they dig into the sand and burrow is is done in stages. So the first stage is when the bottom end opens up and what is called a foot comes out. Because what's inside here, it's like a fish, it's like the inside of a clam, the inside of a mussel. So it's just like the inside of an oyster. Okay? And it's white. What happens is they have a foot. Now this foot comes out through here. These clam shells can reach up to 25 centimetres. So they can get quite large. This is a really large one. What happens is they will bury into the sand. The foot inflates hydraulically. So what I mean by hydraulically is it will inflate with water. And what the foot does is it pulls it down into the sand. So it pulls it right down into the sand. So that foot comes out, attaches and pulls itself right into the sand. Now what that does is it solidifies the animal into the sand. So what's inside this, that's not in there at the moment, because this is what we call a dead clam. So this one has usually got the animal inside here. And it buries itself and attaches itself through the use of a foot. And they move with the use of a foot as well. And they can also float. So what they do is they bury it down by the use of the foot, which inflates, which is called hydraulic inflation. Once it's down there, the foot will deflate. And that deflation pulls this shell all the way down. So you'll find these buried in kelp. So they love to hang around in kelp, which is over here. And they also, when they're buried in the sand, you'll tell when they're there because you'll see like a little slit opening, like a little hole opening in the sand. So if you're walking through barefoot, which around South Australia I don't recommend, because some of these species can be poisonous, they can be toxic. Not only cut you, but they can make you very sick. They can make you nauseous, they can cause vomiting, they can cause headaches. So this gets pulled all the way down. And once it's all the way down, that's when they start their filter feeding. When the tide's coming in.
Do you guys have any questions about the razorfish? No? So Paris, with the poisonous ones, where do you find those ones?
Usually they're more around Europe, Northern Europe. They are found around Northern Europe and around Portland, as I said, around South Australia. So these ones, which are called the fan clam, this particular species here, is what we have here in South Australia. So this one is more common in South Australia. You do have small ones as well, which are in Northern Europe. Yeah. The ones in Northern Europe are the ones that are more poison, have more toxic poison than these ones. These ones will cut you in. They have been known to make you sick as well. So it's probably one thing to be careful of when you are actually wandering around in the water, particularly around the surface area here. They do like the surface area because they are a bivalve.
So do you think you could break that open so that we can have a look in what they look like inside?
So this is what they look like inside. Now, I just want to let everybody know that this is a dead clam. It's a dead shell. There's nothing inside it. So I'm not actually harming any marine animal here. So that's what they look like inside. So do you see the valve that they're held on with? This is the valve. Yeah, so they're held on with this valve. So as you can see, the inside of them is much like, it's just white, much like the inside of a clam or the inside of an oyster. I'm going to tell you an interesting fact just while we're here about the oyster. Ever seen a pearl? Oyster pearl? Pretty? Would you wear them? Yeah? Do you know what they actually are? What they actually are is those pearls started off as a grain of sand or even a parasite. Now what happens with an oyster? Even an abalone, this here, this white stuff in here, they have inside them. Not with these there's only certain clams and certain species in the law that do create these pearls. So that's why they are so expensive to buy. And the abalone is exactly the same. They've got times from the parasite or a grain of sand that may be irritating them inside their apex. They will create a little pearl. The pearl from an abalone is not quite as big as what it is from a oyster. So just be careful of these guys when you are walking around. They do give you quite a hefty cut. They are they are dangerous.
You yourself has been cut by one of these before,
I have,
haven't you?
Yeah, I have put my knee on one and I have put my foot on one. I bent down, it was actually here, I bent down and put my knee on one. My knee had a big gash out. And I've also put my foot on one, walking through here. They do hurt, so just be careful when you are walking around. Just make sure, that's why when I'm diving I wear these. So just make sure that when you are walking around, you have some sort of dive shoe or even thongs or just something on your feet. Just make sure that when you are walking around, you just be aware and even look down and just have a look for any little hole that might be there. It may not necessarily be a crab hole, it might be one of these that's buried underneath. And particularly just be careful as well.
Is there an interesting fact you can tell us about the razorfish that we haven't gone through?
Really any interesting facts about them, not for the fact that some of them are toxic.
Yeah.
Some of them can be very toxic. So I guess, well, the only interesting fact I can tell you is that don't step on them. Because they do bury themselves quite low, and they are hard to see at times. And actually, an interesting fact about them, to be honest with you, when they're in kelp, they don't bury down quite so low.
Okay.
Because they don't have to.
Yeah.
What the burying is, it's a camouflage. When they're in the kelp, they've got the kelp to camouflage them, so they don't actually need to bury all the way down. So it just depends on where you are as to where you have to look. So if you're in the kelp, just be aware that they may only bury to about that depth. So you'll see that sticking out.
So how long do they live for?
They're a bivalve, so they can live anywhere up to 50 to 60 years.
Yeah.
Again, that's just an outside number. That's just a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
And that number again is going.
So when they filter feed, what do they eat?
As I said, they eat like tiny bits of plankton or algae, microalgae, anything that's coming in through your tides. They will filter feed on. Like I said, they filter feed that through these tiny little, it's like a filtering device that they have, and they filter the water out, and that just leaves the food through. Much like a baleen whale, with the baleen plates. So it's much like that. It just filters out the water and just keeps the food and nutrients that they need. An interesting thing during the summer, they aren't breeding. So these guys, their breeding cycle goes dormant in the summer. So you're not likely to see too many of them popping up brand new now. So the reason they're so big now as you see them is because they are adults. So breeding is generally done between autumn and winter times, but right now they're dormant. So they're not breeding right now. So you're not likely to see any new ones. These are the adults.
Do they have any predators?
Because they're very slow.
Yeah.
They're very slow. So crabs, lobster will open them up. We've actually seen some crabs over at Coffin Bay split these open. Split these open and empty them out of them. That's what we actually have seen. So yeah, all your crustaceans.
Wow.
Like the lobsters, crabs, that's all open.
Oh, there you go. Is there anything else you can tell us about it, or
That's pretty much all there is about them. In fact, that they are slow moving.
Yeah.
And yeah, just be careful. Just be aware when you're walking around the waters of Port Lincoln and Coffin Bay, Tumby Bay, all those sort of areas that they are around.
Cool. Oh, thank you, Paris.
Hand you back over and
Yes.
going out there.
No worries.
Ta-ta.
Well, thank you girls for being a part of this today. I hope you enjoyed yourself and learnt some facts about the razor